Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are in for a very exciting webinar. We invite any Q&A in the chat for any questions that you may have as we get started. So as we get started, I want to first briefly introduce Generations United's new Intergenerational Leadership Accelerator program. This is a new fellowship developed for emerging leaders age 18 to 30 who are driving, leading, and championing intergenerational initiatives across the country. Through this fellowship, participants served as champions for intergenerational collaboration, strengthening their programs in their communities, and helping to shape the future of intergenerational work. This was our first inaugural cohort, which represented a diverse group of emerging leaders working across many different sectors. We had 9 fellows participate in this cohort, and this initiative was made possible with the support of the Eisner Foundations, whose commitment to fostering intergenerational connection and strengthening programs for all generations. And we were really excited about this program because we heard from so many of our younger leaders saying they wanted more opportunities to connect with one another and get a chance to meet with one another, because sometimes they can feel a little isolated in the field as they're coming up and becoming these new leaders. So we'll have an opportunity to hear from a few of the participants in the cohort today. We're going to hear from Hannah Silver from Hebrew Senior Life, Mackenzie Wilson from Silver Kite, and Ariel Galinsky from the Legacy Project, Maya Joshi from Lifting Hearts with the Arts, and they'll have a chance to introduce their program as well as answer a few questions in the panel discussion. So let's get started. So we're first going to have Hannah Silver from Hebrew Senior Life.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah Silver, and I work for an organization called Hebrew Senior Life. Hebrew Senior Life has 7 different locations across the state of Massachusetts, across the continuum of care. So we have residents who are living in independent living, assisted living, both memory and traditional, and long-term care. And we have multi-generational programming in 3 of those 7 locations. And I have the honor of running. Oh, it says I am echoing. Can everybody else hear me okay? Hopefully, maybe. Sorry. I have the honor of running 2 out of our 3 multi-generational programs at 2 different locations. So one of our locations is Newbridge on the Charles. It actually is a shared campus. So we share a campus with the Rashi School. The Rashi School is pre-K through 8. And a lot of what I do there is I build intentional intergenerational community. Because we're just there, we could just be there and that's it. But a lot of my role is to bring just being there to life and to make it feel really intentional and to have us spend time together intentionally and be neighbors intentionally. So as I was sitting here thinking about what programs I wanted to share with you all, I thought that the picture on the upper right is a really good representation of why it's important to know your neighbors. So I run a monthly program called Grand Families with kindergartners and first graders, and they come over every month to spend time with independent living residents. And this last year, our independent living residents really wanted to focus on recycling and the importance of environmental protection, specifically on our beautiful shared campus. And so, driven by the independent living residents, they spent the year teaching our kindergartners and first graders about how to take care of the place that they live in and the place that they go to school. So that's really nice, and is a really, really important program. We have programs for every grade. So in theory, as long as they're there from pre-K through 8th grade, they'll see our residents every year. So another fun program that I run is called Lunch Bunch, where our 8th graders get to come over and eat lunch with our traditional assisted living residents as kind of an 8th grade privilege. Moving on to the left side of your screen, I also run multi-generational programming at Center Communities of Brookline. Center Communities of Brookline is all independent living, and I get a lot more independent volunteers there. So it's a lot more about independent friendships. Instead of community, I don't have huge classes coming, I don't have big groups of residents. I mostly work to create one-on-one relationships because it's so individualized, which is why here I focus a lot more on friendships. So, a good example of that is the top left picture. Every Friday, I run a program called Creative Corner, where we sit, craft, and chat. Nothing too elaborate, nothing too exciting, but it really gives people the chance to sit and get to know the person that they're sitting next to. They talk about their weeks and their upcoming weekends. They talk about school that they're currently in or school that they used to be in. And you can see on the upper left that we have many, many friendships that were formed, but this one I got to catch on camera. These are two people reuniting. Stella goes to school in Boston, but for the summer spends back at home in California. And her and our resident Sarah had been emailing all summer, and this was them getting to reunite. Another example of one of these programs is our multi-generational discussion group, where we sit and chat. You can see the little speakers next to the lunch bunch in the multi-generational group. I actually don't think I have time to share any sound, but that sound was a recording of one of our lovely volunteers, Sarah, who really created a nice friendship with one of our residents named Richard. I am fully out of time, but I do so much and I'm always happy to chat. And thank you all for listening.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. And what makes the program effective and impactful to the community, do you think?
There's a lot of things that make it effective and impactful, but I think one of the main things is really making people feel needed and heard and understand their impact. I like to say that I'm a little bit of a glorified middleman sometimes, and people love to share their reflections on why they love our multi-generational programming, but don't always tell the person directly. And so I think like one of the ways that I do that in a really small way is if one of our residents emails me and says, "Oh my God, I loved doing X, Y, and Z with the X, Y, and Z person," asking them if I can tell the volunteer that and forward them the quote and that type of thing, and really making it known that both parties have an impact on each other and both parties have a purpose in each other's lives. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the beauty of intergenerational work. You're both benefiting from the program or the activity or the situation, not just one generation is getting majority of the benefit. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. We'll hear more from you later in our panel discussion. So we'll go to Mackenzie Wilson from Silver Kite.
Hi there, everybody. Good morning. It's if you're on the Pacific or the West Coast, I'm on the West Coast. It's great to be joining you today. Um, this slide has a lot of information. I actually was not sure if I could be here this morning or today. So I will try to kind of run through a little bit of this information more cohesively. But I work for a company called Silver Kite Community Arts here in Seattle, Washington. We focus on addressing social connection. So we are working to alleviate symptoms of social isolation and loneliness through the arts. And we do that in a variety of different ways. And intergenerational programs is one of those big ways that we do that. So I am our intergenerational and community programs manager here. I got started with Silver Kite through a really awesome program called the Intergenerational Theater Company. And that sees about 3 to 5 actors come together, share their stories, and build a show out of those stories that then travels around the area. So we continue to expand upon that in different ways. This year, we're offering workshops along with those performances. So those communities are getting workshops where they can build their own storytelling projects, and then yeah, it's really awesome. We've done 13 shows, so we're rooting for more. And then I run our intergenerational projects as well. One of those projects is the Memory Box Project, which is an oral history based project where students interview older adults and then create memory boxes in their honor. It's a really awesome opportunity to get to know each other on deeper levels, and then create something that celebrates the life stories of somebody that you get to know outside of your generation. So, and then we also do a variety of custom projects. So we do art workshops, other theater and storytelling projects, outdoor arts, and really anything that the community is looking to do. So we're get really excited about that. Just a little about Silverkite. My background's in theater, so I love theater performance and storytelling. Yeah. I don't know if it's my time to go into my other things, but do check out our intergenerational programs page on our website. I had it linked on that last slide, but we can put it in the chat too. Um, so you can get kind of some cool visuals there. So I'm talking a little bit today about our evaluation practices. And evaluation, I mean, we're really, sorry, this slide has these grids on it, so it's kind of hard to read that left side, but we really are focused on the questions of, are people coming and are people enjoying this? And how can we track that? So there are several ways that we do that. We you want to we really want to include three different ways to evaluate a program, and a blend of qualitative and quantitative. And qualitative, of course, is open-ended. People are responding honestly from their experience. And then quantitative is, sorry, I don't know if I just tripped myself up, but quantitative is numbers based and binary. So you're looking for yes, no, 1 through 10. And that can all help you. So if you have about three ways that you're doing that, that can be really helpful to gauge the overall quality and quantity and success of a program. And these are just three ways that we do that. So at the beginning and the end of sessions, we ask people to share a word for their mood. So that's qualitative because it's coming from where they're at in their day. We also do 3 question feedback surveys during the program and then towards the end of a program. So that can help kind of shape the program throughout. And then it also helps us assess at the end how the program went. And then we also ask teaching artists and facilitators to kind of mark what's going on. So rating things 1 through 10 after each session. Getting a gauge of the mood and energy levels at the beginning and the end, assessing how many people came to a session versus another session, and then processing if did you witness any active listening or frustration or encouragement, yes or no. Those things are all really helpful. And then, yeah, the other things we're looking for are people creating relationships. That's the really big one. Are people seeing, is joy happening? Are you witnessing people connecting and getting to know each other on a deeper level? And taking notes on that can be really helpful as well. So I hope I didn't go over time. I was honestly didn't really look at the clock. So thanks for having us today.
Yes, thank you, Mackenzie. I think
Yeah.
this is such an important piece when it comes to the evaluation because, our programs have a lot of heart, but sometimes it can be difficult to get that information, get some of that data that we need for like grants or different other types of funding or just reporting back. So it's just important to hear how different programs are doing and gathering their evaluation processes. So thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
with us today. We'll hear from you again later. And we'll go
Thank
on
you.
to Ariel Galinsky from the Legacy Project.
Hi, everyone. I don't have fancy slides. I'm just going to speak about the work that we do through the Legacy Project. And it's so wonderful to be a part of this community too, because I've collaborated with so many of my cohort members as well. So I lead an organization, co-founded an organization called the Legacy Project. We are an intergenerational storytelling organization, and we're national. So we have nearly 75 chapters across high schools and colleges. And what how it starts is students generally come to us or we find them and they decide to start a chapter in their school community. And we find a community partner where they can engage for an academic year-long program where basically we walk them through a 10-week interview process, a 10-week storytelling and writing process that culminates in a published book. And what I think is so important about this work in the intergenerational space is that it's truly co-generational, it's bi-directional. And so we very much focus on that. So our interview process, the youngers and olders interview one another. And then same with the writing process, youngers and olders write about each other's stories. And the final book is a collection of everyone's stories across the generations. And we really believe that comes with a mutual learning process. So that's really our flagship programming. As of the past year, we also launched a spin-off program with the idea that by engaging generations through storytelling and through this critical connection work, we can also potentially supercharge other civic action work within communities. And so our Civics Changemakers program, which started off last year, piloted across 6 cities in the United States. Basically, the model is it's an expedited version of our storytelling program, and then 2 months of a civic engagement program where each pair is given a stipend to launch in a co-collaborative way, a civic engagement project within their communities, with the idea that by getting to know one another through the storytelling process, they'll be able to find some area of concern or issue that they both care about in their community and then pursue a project around it. So that went really well after our first iteration. And we are actually launching, as of yesterday, a new Civics Change Makers cohort specifically in Chicago for the upcoming year. So if you or anyone you know is in Chicago, would love to have you look and apply to join. So those are our two kind of our mainstream programs. We very much have an approach of we try to empower and train our chapter leaders so that they can also really lead and make the program what they want and unique to the communities in which they're a part of. And that's, I think, a really critical part that we do have this model that can be replicated, but at the same time, it can be molded to the community needs and to the participants that are a part of these different schools and different communities. In terms of what we evaluate, so I think when we first started the program, we specifically looked at, our major focus was combating social isolation and loneliness, which I think a lot of intergenerational programs do aim to address. And so that was really the impetus behind the program, in addition to uplifting stories through published books. And that's kind of the key project outcome of the work that we do. Over time, as we started collecting survey data from our youngers and olders, especially from our youngers, we found that a lot of the students actually wanted to engage or pursue careers in aging after participating in an intergenerational program. And so we started including measures specific to that, and we've seen that trend continue and persist throughout time. And so that was an unintended positive consequence of the work that we do, and now we very much focus on that, and so much so that we are actually doing a program in partnership with a nursing program in California to see for a cohort of nursing students if this potentially increases their interest in pursuing a career specifically in geriatric nursing. And so the work has a lot of different, I think as my cohort members have shared, like this work has so many different positive impacts. And so being able to continue this work and has been really exciting. So I think Alanka has a question for me, so I'll pass it off to her.
Yes, I do. So we talked about this a lot throughout our cohort, but what was one challenge in your program that you have currently addressed, and what is something that you learned along the way?
Yeah, and in part, I think I jumped that hurdle. I mentioned that one of the key things that we hope to address is building social connectedness amongst older and younger adults, as we know, are the two hardest impacted communities populated by demographic. By social isolation and loneliness. So that's a big focus of our work. What's interesting is we've kind of moved away from scales like the UCLA loneliness scale and instead have focused on measures of affirmative connectedness as a result of the programs. And so that's something we've actually moved away from, which we originally started with scales like UCLA. So I think that's something that's been a work in progress over time in terms of how we're evaluating our programs. But yeah.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to our next fellow in our cohort, and we'll hear again from Ariel later during our panel discussion. So we'll move to Maya Joshi from Lifting Hearts with the Arts.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here, and thank you for taking the time to join. My name is Maya, and I started Lifting Hearts with the Arts 6 years ago. So right, like I think a month or so into the pandemic. And this was largely inspired by the connection I had and the art I made with my grandparents growing up, and even now. And it started as a really small idea of bringing together my then high school friends with older adults who were affected by the pandemic and in and independent living communities. And then we ended up getting a lot of interest from people our age, people older than us, and then we kind of went into a nonprofit model. And so on the screen, you can kind of see some images of what we've done. You can see like back in our virtual era where there were a lot of Zoom calls that involved people bringing their instruments and a lot of FaceTimes. And then since then, luckily, transitioning out of the pandemic, we've kind of done some trial and error with different models of bringing together people through in-person art making. So on the next slide, I kind of have an overview of the kinds of programs we offered. So when we started, we kind of wanted to pair older and younger folks together based on mutual interests. So for example, I live in Chicago, and one of the aspects I was paired with was the fact that I am a Cubs fan, and the older adult Robert, who I met with, was also a Cubs fan. So that was one moment of connection that we had to start our friendship. And then after we kind of explored with that program and continued with trial and error, then we kind of expanded to in-person work within the city of Chicago with a program called Cogen Creations that aims to bring Chicago Public High School students together with nearby senior living communities for structured art making. And then more recently, one of our programs is called Generation Mosaic. That just finished its pilot year with the Eisner Foundation, which was super exciting, that aims to bring college students and graduate students together with independently living older adults in their college towns or communities, with the idea that each session they have together is kind of allowing them to create a mosaic, whether it's like a Spotify playlist or a collage they can bring home, and really leaning into the idea that a mosaic is something tangible, but also the fact that we're all pieces of a puzzle that kind of can fit together nicely. And then that program culminates with the installation of like a physical mosaic into that college community. So super excited to see how that grows and continues. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here and listen.
Thank you, Maya. So the question I have for you today is, what have you learned about creating meaningful intergenerational experiences throughout your program?
I think so much. And I think if I fully answered that question, we'd be here for like 20 hours or so. So I don't want to subject you all to that. But a couple of the main points, I think something we've really kind of leaned in and lead out of is how much structure do we actually have within our programs? Because sometimes if you just put older and younger people in a room together, there might not be that many connections that form, or there might, like, it kind of depends. And then if you have too much structure, then it might feel forced. So I think really trial and error as a way to experiment with how much structure you can have in a program is something that we've learned. Another thing too, a lot of our programs center around collaboration on a specific form of art, whether it's like making a mosaic or making a painting together or a collage, that involves equal collaboration from older and younger folks. So something like that where people can work on something together, like even in Ariel's Changemakers Fellowship, the idea that they're working together on a project, I think that's one thing that we've learned can really help facilitate connection and can help prevent some of the awkward silences that will always be there, but just a way to circumvent that. So thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to move forward to a moderated discussion. So we're going to bring all the fellows back on, give a chance for all of them to get spotlighted and just ask them a few questions. So if you have any questions from the audience, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we may have a chance to get to them later throughout the panel. Great. I see everyone. So we'll start with our first question. And thank you all again for joining us today. So, a lot of times we're talking about being the future of the field and being emerging leaders, but sometimes we need to look back at our why. So, I want to ask all of you, what inspired you to pursue intergenerational work? We'll start with Mackenzie.
Awesome. What inspired me to participate and kind of grow in the intergenerational field was again, my background's in theater. I grew up kind of around in community theater. It's a lot of different people, a lot of different energies you're getting to know and stories you're getting to learn. And I think for me, having mentors and people in my life who were older than me, seeing the purpose that I had and like the voice that I had, being able to encourage that um, made me feel like the work that the connection throughout our growth and our ages, different chapters of life was really important to me, and that I could learn from people younger than me and older than me throughout my journey, especially through the arts. So for me, it was about creating something where voices were heard, and at no matter what age you were, whether you're younger, you are a leader in some ways, and whether you're older, you're a leader and a learner in a lot of ways as well. So I think it was about kind of finding the voice throughout the different chapters of my life and the people around me. So thanks.
Yeah, that's definitely beautiful. And I think that resonates with a lot of us. Hannah?
Yeah. Um, this is a hard question for me because intergenerational work kind of found me. I, for my whole life, wanted to be a teacher, and I went to get my master's in education and kind of abruptly in the middle decided that I didn't want to be a classroom teacher and I wanted to do some sort of hands-on learning instead because that was how I learned best. And I felt frustrated being in schools and I was looking for jobs in hands-on learning. And I told somebody that, and she was like, "Oh my God, I just had lunch with a woman that you have to meet." And so here I am. I got roped in, and I'm so, so, so lucky. Now that I look back on it, my whole life has been based on intergenerational friendships. One of my best friends is 89 years old and lives in Colorado. But I didn't for sure not pursue it. It found me, and I am so, so lucky.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we all have talked about, how we just found our place somewhere in this intergenerational field. We may have been already doing something similar to it, but just didn't have the word or the term to classify it as intergenerational. And then everything started clicking and making sense. Yeah. What about you, Ariel?
Yeah. For me, I always knew that I wanted to pursue a career in aging. So that was something that I think informed my younger days. When I lost my grandfathers and didn't know their life stories, that was the initial impetus for why I started the Legacy Project as more of a passion initiative. I started working at a Hebrew Senior Life location, actually in my hometown. So that's a connection to Hannah and how we originally met. But I started working in a local community and got to know a lot of those who lived in that community as friends, but wanted to hear a greater part of their life story. And so that's when the Legacy Project was born, in part born out of that regret that I had for not asking my own grandfathers those really important questions. And I fell in love with it. I wanted to continue this work. And then I also realized that there was a real yearning amongst other students, peers my own age, who didn't either have a close connection with their grandparent or who wanted a closer connection with an older adult in their life to get to know older adults in their own college and university communities. And so that was the real start for the Legacy Project, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So much can be born out of a personal passion. So, Maya, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the grandparent note too, like I feel like doing art with my grandparents and just hanging out with them growing up was really the way that allowed me to see them as real people with like real goals and thoughts and aspirations as opposed to like these grandparent figures that like take care of me and help me out. And I really felt like I could understand who they were and maybe in some elements why why my parents were the way they were, why my sister and I were the way they are, and seeing those common themes, and then that plus like the pandemic and all of the social isolation that was really at the spotlight. That was kind of like the perfect storm that led to the idea for Lifting Hearts. And I think being in high school at the time and then going to college made me kind of itch for like that social connection with older folks in my own community. And I think that's also, and a lot of our volunteers felt that as well. So that was also kind of the impetus to switch to like something that kind of grew with us. And so my plan is to do this until I'm on the other end of the age spectrum, and hopefully my grandchildren and folks can be involved too. So we'll see.
I love that. And then, how has participating in the Intergenerational Leadership Accelerator program influenced or helped your personal growth, whether in your program or your career as you moving forward? I know we had some graduations and classes all going on throughout this cohort. Whoever would like to jump in first.
I
I'm
can
happy
kick
to
us
jump. Oh,
off. Oh,
Oh,
no,
go
no,
ahead,
you
Hannah. Go
go.
ahead. Okay, I'll go.
Um,
Oh, go ahead, Hannah. Go.
okay. I was just gonna say that I can't say it any better than Alonka did at the beginning. Just kind of general intimidation from jumping into any field. I think a young person feels intimidated and overwhelmed and doesn't really know who to turn to. And the intergenerational world is a world that is so incredibly welcoming. I feel so lucky that I found this field, and I still felt intimidated and overwhelmed. And so I think that being a part of this program has just kind of helped me feel like I have, maybe one foot on the ground instead of none. I think that all young people are bound to feel some of that, but having those connections and support along the way really, really helps. Okay, Ariel, now you go.
Yeah, I mean, I concur with what you shared, Hannah. I think for me, the one of the kind of the beautiful elements of this program was being able to be in a very intentional space with other younger change makers who are building intergenerational programs. I think there's a lot of challenges that come with this work, paired with all of the beauty and wonderfulness of it. That it's sometimes hard to find, in my own school or my own, sometimes in my own direct physical environment, there's not a lot of individuals who can necessarily relate to that. And so to have this very dedicated community, to be able to text Maya or Hannah or Mackenzie and ask them about challenges that they're facing and how they've addressed it has been very helpful. So appreciative for GU for hosting this program.
Yeah, I also will add that it feels like sometimes we're speaking the same language because during the part of the program where we were all discussing our challenges and our evaluation methods, there's so much we could learn from each other and our experience. And I think that has also made way for great ways we can work together, either through our current programs or other programs. And so it's really nice to have this community in the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you guys are saying, because I think we work in a really unique field where it's about building community. And so then having a community where companies and organizations are intentionally connecting to each other and uplifting one another. I think we're modeling that really well. And so it's really helped me feel supported in the work, as you all are noting. And then also being able to contextualize and kind of be like, learn from things that I may not be doing, but maybe I'm inspired by or want to be doing or put my feet into. And so that to me is like, oh, this is happening across the country. And that might kind of play into how I'm doing things over here. So it's a wide web of inspiration for me. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the beauty of this cohort. You guys were all across the country, but you had similar issues or similar transitions or stories that led you to this work or similar struggles that you were experiencing throughout your programs. You were just looking for community of younger voices that you could relay ideas to. Maybe if you didn't have a person you could go to, you had to build this community. I think that was such a great part to see all the connections and learn from you all as well. And then many of your programs reflect elements of quality recognized through our intergenerational programs of certification, which are programs of distinction and merit. So, what are some quality practices that your programs have that have made the greatest difference in your work? And anyone can get started.
I think all of us have kind of touched on this in some way already, but I think the evaluation piece has been really critical for us. That has changed a lot since we started. We had first asked for a lot of maybe way too much feedback from all of our participants, but that was really the way we kind of could do our trial and error and repeat. And then since then, we've kind of moved towards like the more formal measures, and we're trying to conduct meaningful research to figure out what we can do better, but that has been really helpful, especially since like this is my first time doing this. This is the first time of a lot of our volunteers doing programs like this. And so again, I think that evaluation piece has been probably the most important to us.
I think that for us, both engaging younger and older folks meaningfully and intentionally has been one of the biggest pieces, especially being on a shared campus. When I am planning programs for pre-Kers, I am also essentially planning programs for fifth graders and eighth graders and thinking about them at every step of the way, and thinking about how I meaningfully want them to scale up their intergenerational relationships, and not only think about where they are now and where they'll be tomorrow, but hopefully where they will be in like much further down the line. And I think like really creating that curriculum intentionally has been a huge piece of being able to let people grow in the way that they should throughout our program.
You go. You can go.
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with Hannah on the engagement of younger and older adults meaningfully. I think, of course, that is ingrained into our model. The bidirectionality piece is making sure that each person feels like they have the opportunity to both share their story and hear their story, as well as contribute to the final product, which is a published book. But I also think we try to find other ways as well. So we have national workshops that we invite all of our younger and older participants to engage in. We have a speakers bureau that represents both students' voices as well as our older participants. Our advisory board has one of our former older adult participants as a part of our advisory board to help guide our future programming. And so we really take that to heart to make sure that it is meaningful for both our younger and older participants. And then I would say the other element that, I mean, I think all of the elements, I was looking through them earlier, resonate, but one particularly is designing a very structured, consistent and interactive program. I think that's really key. I think the idea of just connecting generations is a really, it's a good one, but it's sometimes challenging when you don't have a structured activity for younger and older adults to engage upon. So by having this, 10-week program where in the fall they come and interview one another, it makes that relationship develop, I think, deeper because they don't have to come up with their own ways of being able to engage with one another. They have this question list that they can default to if they don't know what the next thing to say. So I think it's really helpful and important to think about how are you intentionally engaging versus just putting a younger and older adult into a room, which can be a challenge because of the age barrier.
Yeah, and tagging into what we're all talking about, I mean, that's essentially what I'm thinking about too, is that we're working to strike a really nice balance between structure and choice for our participants, and having a framework for people to work in, and then also allowing them to show up as themselves with their own life experience, to then be able to kind of work within that framework. We want that authentic connection as much as we can. So we're kind of, that's why the feedback is so important. That's why the evaluation is so important, because you want people to really be honest about how this is going for them and what you're witnessing, what are physical indicators of like joy and frustration and encouragement, those sorts of things. So it's really important to take note of those, just speaking to what we're all talking about. And then I think it also is in terms of that element, it's also really important for us to, yeah, I mean, joy is a huge part of our program. So we're looking for joy, but we're also looking that people are creating that together. So just what we're speaking about here is that they're both leaders and learners, that they can create the space together, that they can work in that together, that they're creating art together, everybody's voice is being heard. And then I remember my actual caveat there, the little note that I wanted to put in was that creating a place that is accessible for everybody. So really honing in on microphones, having different ways people can access materials, whether that's online, whether that's physical, and then being aware that some people, smell is different, or being walking in a room might be different, movement might be different. So being people centered and focusing on each person, I think, is another really important aspect of our program. Sorry, there's something at my foot that's distracting me. But yeah, so being people focused 100% of the time is what we're looking for in our program design. So.
Great. Thank you all. There's just so much that we can learn from all of your programs when it comes to the wonderful work that you're doing and why you are programs of distinctions. And so let's pivot a little bit. So, what is one thing experienced intergenerational leaders can do to cultivate the next generation and help ensure the future of the field? We talk a lot throughout our cohort about how it can be intimidating sometimes, it can be nervous, there's not a lot of opportunity sometimes for younger voices to be heard. So, what are some of your ideas on ways that experienced intergenerational leaders can help this transition or cultivate the next group coming up?
I'm like afraid to go first and somebody on my unmutes. Um, I I can go first. Um, I there are so many things, but I think that things like this and making intentional space is so important, and really making it feel approachable. I think that as young people in a field, we're often more inclined to kind of step back and listen, and making room for our voices, I think is a really big one. I think also something that I try to do always is use the word intergenerational and multi-generational. I think that I would have found this field faster if somebody had, if somebody had in front of me said those words, and talked about the importance of that. And so I frequently with my volunteers am just like, hey, thanks for coming to this intergenerational space, and kind of pinging that for them. And so I think that that will ultimately help people find this field faster if they, are able to understand that, like, oh, I'm an old soul. I have an interest in this. This thing is called intergenerational work. Yeah.
Um, I for me, what comes to mind in all this, I do think is for leaders already in the field, or people who have been working in the field in the intergenerational community for a while. I think what's important for me to see is that they're participating in programs that maybe aren't their own, or that we are creating, that we are all staying active as both leaders in the field and then also participants at whatever age that we are, and in supporting other people's programs actively. I think is really helpful to see and encouraging to see when I'm like, oh, they know about this project because they've done it or they've worked on it in some way, where they weren't necessarily the top dog in the process. I think that's really encouraging. Thanks.
I also want to take this moment to plug the GU conference because I went for the first time at the to the last one, and it was a little daunting walking into a room of people who have been doing this for like an entire lifetime, or even more than that for me. Yet everyone was so welcoming, and I really liked how all of the sessions were intergenerational in themselves, and people were very approachable. Like even looking at like the people on this call. I met a lot of people through that conference that were just so open to connect and collaborate even after, and that really made me feel like I was at home. So if you have the ability and capacity to go to that, regardless of your age, that's like my favorite conference of all time, and nothing will ever live up to it, even if it's in Hawaii. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, I think one way we try to build in with the legacy project is by training our chapter leaders to be intergenerational leaders themselves. So talking about framing the language in terms of, to Hannah's point, I think the language piece is so critical. We use youngers and olders in our program. Different programs use different language, but that's something that we try to equip our chapter leaders with so that they can spread that in their own communities. It can proliferate from there. I'll also take this moment to plug a different thing, which is something Maya and I have been working on called Changemakers in Aging. And I think the whole idea of it is to bring together a group of emerging leaders in all across different disciplines in aging. But of course, because of Maya and I's focus, specific focus on intergenerational engagement. And that's a through line in the conference that we had last year and will begin again this year. So I will put that in the, oh, perfect. Maya already did it. But yeah, so that is something that we're trying to build up because I think the more spaces we can cultivate that bring together emerging leaders in the field, the more there will be excitement and legitimacy that this is something you can pursue as a career. And I think that's really critical.
Yes, thank you, all of you, for your insight on ways that we can help continue to grow the future of this field, especially the conference shout out and being able to participate and get to meet each other at once before you even where the cohort had even came out or any applications or anything. And it looks like we have time for a few audience questions. So let's see. I do see one that September is Intergenerational Month. And how is your program honoring that? If any of your programs are honoring that?
With one of our programs, Generation Mosaic, our mosaic that our students at Northwestern and older adults living in like the Evanston, Chicago area, we're working on is going to be finished, and we're going to have like a celebration with like big scissors and a ribbon cutting. So that's celebrating that program, but also as a way to like September is a month where a lot of people go back to school too. So as a way to kind of celebrate the new school year and the new intergenerational connections that will form, and then also a reminder of what intergenerational connections had been formed over the last year. So I guess it's a coincidence that it's September, but like theoretically it's on purpose. So
I was just gonna, we don't have a specific event for Intergenerational Month, but our chapters kick off in September. So we have a lot of new chapters kicking off, and so there's going to be a whole kind of new cohort of intergenerational programming happening across the country. So that I think is a celebration of Intergenerational Month, but maybe has got me percolating as to whether we should do a specific workshop or webinar around the topic. So thank you for whoever asked that question.
Yeah, similarly, we don't have a distinguished celebratory event, but we are kicking off. So Silver Kite just opened our first like building where people can come to us, which is really exciting. We've been going since 2013, so this is the first time that we're bringing people in. But we are kicking off Tell Me More, which is an intergenerational conversation group for women and femme identifying people. So we're bringing people together to discuss what it is to age as a woman in all the different ways. So we're really excited to kick that off. And if you know anyone in Seattle, send them over to us. But yeah, so that will definitely coincide with celebrating Intergenerational Month in September.
And I didn't know about it until right now, so thank you for saying that. Similarly, whoever named this month, don't they know that that's like the crazy time of year because students come back? Um, we're doing lots of kickoffs, lots of school year kickoffs, it's also the month of lots of Jewish holidays, and a lot of the programming that I do surrounds the Jewish calendar. So we'll be doing a lot of kind of reflecting and starting new and that type of thing. And so it's right on time, but we're not doing anything particularly specifically for that, but similar to Ariel. Now you got my wheels turning. So thanks.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So now we can see how we can talk more about that for September. But just to have one final question. So we talked about a lot of different things today, and just what is something that gives you hope for the future of the intergenerational field?
I'll start. I can start. I think for me, it's that um, I've started to hear about intergenerational friendships and what it looks like to have a multi-generational workforce and what it looks like to take an intergenerational approach to policy much more in the mainstream than I feel like I've had in the past few years. I think it's catching drift that it is something that has importance beyond just being a feel-good exercise, but something that really does have the power of addressing other form of polarization that I think we also heavily face, and thinking about how it can actually address and move towards some of these solutions that we're trying to come to as a society. And so that gives me hope that it is something that is less of a niche and becoming more mainstream. And I hope that trend continues and that we can build on that momentum to keep these programs growing. So.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like several years ago when I used to be like in intergenerational programming, I used to get a lot more of like, what's that? Like, what do you mean? And I think maybe it's because of who I'm surrounding myself with nowadays, and everyone's kind of talking about this. I don't know. So I think that is on that point has been really exciting. I also think I started this work kind of getting used to being the youngest person in a room talking about this. And like recently I was in a like another cohort fellowship where I was in like the middle age category, which is like very new for me, who's like for someone who's 21. So I don't know. So I think it's exciting to kind of start to like not be the youngest person in a Zoom room or even in a room, and to see all of the exciting things that people younger than me are working on, people my age and then people older than me.
I think for me, it's the passion of all of the professionals around me. I feel it every day, even though I am one of only three people doing intergenerational work kind of on my team. But I still feel like everybody around me is so excited about intergenerational work in general. And anytime I meet anybody who builds intergenerational friendships, they love it. Like that is just what brings them so much joy. And so I think that it's kind of the instilled passion in this field that really gives me a lot of hope and makes this particular sector very, very approachable. Because everybody is like, oh my God, yes, you are in the right place. Like this is, such a good space. I think that it makes it a lot more approachable and feel good. So yeah, that gives me hope.
Um, yeah, I just same. Really, it's like for me, we're in a field that is inherently creative, and people are listening to one another and connecting ideas and pulling them together in the most innovative ways to care about each other. And I think for me, that's giving me hope every day. Also, something that's sticking with me that's coming up in this question is from Kristen Kiefer's a main keynote speaker address at the Mid Atlantic conference. She just said something about how our society is not designed for us to be connected. So for me, it's about working against that and connecting people intentionally in every way that we can. And I think that the more that we do that, as Hannah was just saying, like you can see like how it impacts people directly. Like you see it right there. In the day to day. And that long term effect is also really palpable as well. So it's obvious and it's encouraging. And we are in this world today, like we got to like each other. So we got to find ways to do that. And I think that we're asking each other to do that every day. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you all for sharing your passion and your heart behind your programs and going into details and just sharing everything that you've learned and grown throughout this cohort and throughout your professional work. We really appreciate it and just being openness and willingness to participate. And thank you for joining us today. If we could pull up the slides again. So yes, you heard a lot about all of our speakers today, our participants of our intergenerational program certification. We do have those applications currently open right now. So you can scan this QR code to apply for either our programs of distinction or merit. When you go on the website, there is a video giving you information about any frequently asked questions that we typically get about the application, as well as how to pick which one you should apply for. It's like a little checklist if you are unsure of whether you should apply for distinction or merit. Applications still are currently open if you are interested. Excellent. And then, as you heard from Maya earlier about our wonderful conference, Generations United Global Conference will be taking place on July 21st through the 23rd in Arlington, Virginia, which is just minutes from DC. This is our save the date announcement. You will be hearing more coming out the next few months about when to register, when to hear more about the conference, but these are the dates, so keep those in mind, pencil them into your calendar. So we're hoping to all see all of you there in Arlington, Virginia. And this is our new thing on the website. It is our intergenerational program roadmap. It is a guide that we have developed to help build strong and sustainable intergenerational programs. It has different links and different resources available to you, whether you're just getting started, have questions about funding and sustainability, or if you need more information about program evaluation, how you can do evaluations with your programs and get more information from your participants, and as well as more about quality programs. We're constantly adding to this roadmap and helping to develop it so that it's just an easier resource guide for people who are looking for particular topics or have particular questions. They can find the resource quick and easy. And we have throughout the webinar have dropped several links into the chat from the speakers, whether it's their websites to get more information about their program or take you directly to their website or any upcoming programs that they may have mentioned throughout their speaking. So you can find those links in the chat. And we just want to thank you for joining us today and getting a chance to hear from the emerging leaders that were participating in our first Intergenerational Leadership Accelerator program cohort, where we got a group of 18 to 30-year-old leaders who were in the intergenerational field and are growing as leaders, and get a chance for them to connect and learn from different speakers and different topics and create that sense of community within this program. And thank you for listening to them today and being a part of this wonderful webinar. If you are interested in staying connected with us, you can scan this QR code, as well as all of our social media sites is listed above. And thank you for joining us today. And I'm Ilaka Walker from Generations United. Oh, and I see a few questions about program locations. They are also located in our program database. That link is also has been dropped in the chat as well. If you are looking for a program in a particular area or state, you can find that in our program database. You can search by state or type of program. And yes, the recording will be sent as well.